So I came across this from James Melville, and he says this is one of the most cold-blooded and heartless things I've ever seen from a Prime Minister. Keir Starmer admits he knows some farmers are considering suicide because of inheritance tax on family farms, but then he confirms that he will continue with the inheritance tax. And that's the thing you notice, it's a common denominator between all the puppets you see by and large. Doesn't matter if it's in Ireland, and believe me, there's enough that you could talk about over there, or in Scotland, and the same thing. Absolutely, yeah. We are no longer a priority, and we're not just talking about farmers. And by the way, when I say just talking about farmers, I have a lot of respect for farmers, because I bloody well know if they don't exist, we're screwed, really screwed. Because be assured, the people that own these corporations are absolutely not wanting your lifespan to be that long, and good quality farming is getting in the way of that. Absolutely, yeah. And you look, yeah, at land grabs from Labour. And let's face it, if the Conservatives were in same scenario, and this need to build homes on arable farmland, yeah, and green belts, all the rest of it, and at some stage they'll be going after your garden, yeah, under what is claimed to be the most significant rewrite of planning rules in more than a decade. Housing Secretary Steve Reid said more homes will be built faster in every region. But think about things like, what was it, quotes here, where new housing is built on existing residential gardens and targeting greenbelt land due to a failure to build on brownfield sites. But, you know, as the Ministry of Housing calls it, would bring higher density development and simplified biodiversity rules. Think of the witchcraft of that. Biodiversity rules. This is straight out the Agenda 21 playbook. In fact, I said that as a comment, but surprise, surprise, didn't get a lot of traction. But yeah, in amongst some of the proposed changes, yeah, would be including default approvals for homes around rail stations and high-rise developments in towns and cities. Developers, by the way. That'll be like corporations. And remember, it still will be, you'll own nothing and be happy. And if you want to rent anything, you better be a good citizen. And this is all, you know, and of course, quotes like, development within a 15-minute walk of the station will then be permissible. It all ties into the 15-minute cities and the 20-minute neighbourhoods. Yeah, it absolutely all ties in. Right, my comment was, this is the rollout of Agenda 21, because that's absolutely part and parcel, as is this. Yeah? Under fair use. Let me play you this. Stopping occasionally.
Very much indeed, Prime Minister. Cat Smith MP.
Thank you, Chair. Prime Minister, you've repeatedly said that the economic mission of this government is to be on the side of working people. Is that still your position?
Yes.
Yes. And do you consider farmers, many of whom are getting up at 4 a.m, working 365 days a year, feeding the nation, to be working people, yes or no?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Because last year, rural communities, including many farmers, put their trust in Labour for the very first time in a very long time and gave us a mandate for change in this country. However, and I hear this from many of the 950 farm holdings in my constituency, feel like they were misled around the changes to IHT and APR, which are going to pull the rug from underneath farming communities and obliterate the family farm for many farmers. We're in a situation now where elderly farmers or farmers with terminal diagnosis are in a position whereby if they die before April, their farm will pass to the next generation with no tax implications. But if they die after, the potential of their family farm being completely unviable. Can you see how farmers...
And by the way, they've already factored that in. After all, they've got all the statistics. Yeah, the state is quite literally invested in our early demise. And this is absolutely about destroying high-quality farming and replacing it with Schwab's "you'll eat the bugs."
Can feel like this government hasn't necessarily treated them the way that they expect to be treated as working people.
Well, look, I do understand the concern, and I met with the president of the NFU just last.
And is the president of the NFU another puppet, another Mason? You've got to ask yourself.
week, as I've met with him before, to run through the particular concerns they have. I do think on agricultural property relief, there had to be sensible reform, and I think this is sensible.
And remember, this same said government, or whatever set of puppets are in at the time, are sending quite literally hundreds of millions abroad. Hundreds of millions. In fact, the money that they're going after in British farmers, from British farmers, more or less the same, if not more, is going abroad to African farmers. So if that's the case, why don't we just redirect everybody, dinghy surfing and, well, all these uninvited guests back to, that would make a lot more sense. Yeah, than decimating our own farming. Unless, of course, you're an interconnected death cult and this is all about, well, limiting our choices of high-quality foods.
Sensible reform. We did make...
Fronted by, well, psychopaths.
An amendment in the budget, obviously, in relation to the spousal transfer. And more generally, we are sustaining £11.8 billion in sustainable farming this Parliament. So there's a lot of money set aside in the budget. There's a roadmap that we're agreeing with farmers as to the way forward. And of course, Minette Batters, the ex-president of the NFU, has just completed a report for us on profitability and how we drive up profitability year on year, which I think...
Yeah, but remember, you're not going to do that by quite literally taking the legs from underneath farmers. Yeah. Meanwhile, there's a bug round the corner constantly, and we're going to have to just kill ducks, geese, chicken, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and cattle over time, and whatever else. Anything high-quality protein, any nutritional sources of high-quality protein that has sustained us for thousands of years, that's all going out the window. The apathy in amongst all this is astounding. And that's why I say, and many of the public are as dangerous as these people, because they just have no idea what's going on around them and will consent to being part of it. It's frightening. When, even if one of the most potent things you can do is not to, protest, because that's all bought and paid for. You're there to just show your mugshot. If you're concerned about this, get it. If you've got the option, start being a lot friendlier with your farmers. Seriously. And instead of going to supermarkets, if they're doing eggs for argument's sake, go buy them. Milk, same, so many other things. There is a complexity to this, but it all ties into eugenics and a belief system by an interconnected death cult fronted by, well, these loons.
I think is vitally important because, in a sense, that's the missing factor here, which is the amount of money that farmers can make year on year, and we need to drive that amount up.
And the issue with the money that was in the budget is I think it's been overshadowed in the same way the Countryside Stewardship Fund has been overshadowed by the IHT issue. And I think that the political damage is that whilst the ambitions of government were, I think, quite right in
That's like another sort of controlled op there, yeah.
terms of tackling tax avoidance that could go on in, like, say, large country estates. The collateral damage is that it's actually the small family farm, which is feeling... I
mean, in one regard, she's doing, seemed to be doing what she's representing her constituents, but it all she's explaining for this guy. I'm sure it's, decent reasons, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not decent bloody reasons.
The hit of this, and the changes in the budget won't go any way to benefit one of my constituents who is 89 next month. He's already widowed, so he will not be able to benefit from the spousal transfer that has been announced.
And while the inference obviously in this is about older farmers and thinking, well, maybe if I just pop my clogs before April, I'll be helping my next of kin, and you could see why. I would also add to that, there's many much younger farmers who feel suicidal full stop, based on the pressures they are under. And we really need to address that, seriously, for all our sakes.
And given that you've been a Prime Minister who is, and I think quite admirably...
you see what I'm saying about controlled op, but, they say certain things, but, they're directing it, really. Away from the obvious, like, are you part of an interconnected death cult, you loon? I'm not going to hear that out of these people.
It changed courses in the past when issues of been exposed to the absolute reality of things, would you consider changing course on this issue?
Well, firstly, let me just reassure. The vast majority, three-quarter.
Mind you, it's a clued up, it's glass balls. Pushing plastics on you, recyclable plastics, but anybody that's clued up, it's glass balls.
Farmers simply not affected at all, and of those that are affected, the rate that's paid is half the rate that's over a 10-year period. In relation to the particular example, if you're happy to give me further details, I'll certainly have my team.
Happy, right, the Prime Minister. One final question, Chair, if I may, and this won't have sunk in, I don't think, is the Prime Minister aware that some farmers who have terminal diagnosis now are actively planning to expedite their own deaths so they hit before April? Is he aware of that?
I've had discussions.
Think about this.
With a number of individuals who've drawn all manner of things to my attention.
Yeah, I've heard some things. But we're doing this. Really, these people are psychopaths. Yeah. Absolutely. Bought and paid for. He's controlling nothing. He's a phenomenal actor. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Alistair Carmichael, MP.
And you understand, Prime Minister, that the basis for that actually sits in the finance bill itself. It's the provision called the anti-forestalling clause. You're familiar with the anti-forestalling clause, I think? Yeah, that means that anyone who transfers their property or their farm to a descendant but dies within 7 years will be liable to pay inheritance tax under the new system.
Tell me which part of this is not involved in ongoing eugenics. It's from so many angles. Right, we're destroying farmland, we're destroying the incentivization of skilled farmers, many of them intergenerational. They can do wonders with land. Wonders, yeah? And to so disincentivize them to be what they are, that through suicide or selling up and going, the net result for us is farmland is going over to things like solar panels or house building because we have so many uninvited guests. And it all ties into eugenics and the destruction ongoing of Western nations and Western civilization. Absolutely. And these people, how is it not an interconnected death cult, an occult religion being made manifest before our eyes?
And if you don't live 7 years after that, you could even trigger capital gains tax. If you do nothing...
if they don't hit you one way, they'll hit you another. Quite literally, the state is absolutely weaponized against the Western civilization.
Oh, and you die before April next year, then the state passes tax-free. Do we agree, Prime Minister, that nobody should be left feeling, as Cat Smith has just described, that they would be better off dying between now and next April?
No, of course. But
and I'll add to that, how many people, and I'm just putting it out there, just thinking of it just now, how many older people, for example, are thinking to themselves, well, they don't want to live long enough that they're stuck in a care home where, let's face it, the first thing to go is their property and any kind of wealth they've got burnt through within the matter, in some instances, of months. And they maybe want to pass it down to their children and have decided, well, maybe if I just end it. The level of this is, and we're seeing it, well, most people apparently aren't, but when you look at the detail, you're seeing it every day.
Governments have to bring about sensible reform and take
sensible
measures
absolutely.
But things like anti-forestalling clause, they are not unique to this situation. But on a human level...
What the fuck would he know about that? Humanism, yeah. Another one of the belief aspects. But humanism, and you should look into that, big stuff. Edward G. Griffin, yeah, good guy, yeah. He exposed a lot of that. But, yeah, on a human level.
Yes, your push is, of course, not.
Last year, you told me that this was a policy that was just aimed at revenue raising, that it wasn't targeted at anybody in particular. We've now seen the anti-forestalling clause, and we know from Treasury's own figures that 75% of the £500 million that is expected to be raised from this will come from farmers who die over the age of 75. So, is it not the case that actually...
And remember, each and every one of them is a library being burnt down. A knowledge of farming second to none. This is absolutely eugenics.
This is a targeted measure, and it is targeted at, and it will affect those who are elderly, suffering from terminal illnesses over 75. And it doesn't matter if it's one farmer or 1,000 farmers. Surely you cannot be comfortable with that.
Let me just address the point that it's...
Well, that translates as, the shorthand is, yeah, I'm okay with it. Absolutely okay with it.
not targeted. It's not targeted at individuals.
Well, it was what you said last year.
It's not targeted, as I said
Last year I was told to say something else.
last year. It's an economic reform which we took in the
Seriously.
budget before last. Not targeted. It is to adjust the rate at which
And remember, somebody said, wasn't too far down, I remember, well, there was somebody somewhere that was pointing out that, there were some more stats as regards just how much money from the UK was being sent to Africa in the hundreds of millions to help African farmers. And it was like the similar amount to the extraction of wealth that these bastards are taking out and de-incentivizing farmers in the UK. And I know, as always, I can do a better job, but it absolutely all ties in with this thing here. Garden grabbing, land grabs, planning, framework changes, all the rest of it. The apathy is astounding. Before I go, let's go for best read. Just on the housing aspect. We do not have a housing shortage. We have way too many people here. Deport a few million unwanted immigrants and problem is solved. But they would rather concrete over what green spaces are left and do what needs to be done. The green spaces is, and remember, including arable farmland. This is absolutely eugenics. Another comment, we don't need more homes, we need less people. This is eugenics on steroids. Anyway, share if you care. I'd appreciate a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And I'll speak to you soon.